I'd like to welcome you to this session. I'm speaking to us today is the head of our research, Mr. Keju. So, Mr. Keju, over to you. No, you're no.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Akeju Abdurrahim. Today, I'll be discussing with you Nigeria's inflation causes and effects. Please allow me to share my screen with you. So, before we go into the main topic, I would like us to understand the concept of inflation is a continuous rise in price of goods and services over a period of time. When this happens, the purchasing power of the currency dwindles. That is, there is a dip is experienced in the purchasing power of the currency. Most times when this happens is as a result of actions and inactions of the government. When the government, for instance, decide to finance its deficit physical activities, it orders the CBN to print more currency in order to achieve its aim. The following illustration will buttress our understanding on inflation. Let's consider a basket full of oranges that contains 10 pieces at 10 naira each is sold for 100 naira around February last year. Today, the same quantity of oranges is sold for 500 naira. From this, we can deduce that the inflation rates from February last year to this moment has risen to about 400%. And the price of commodities has increased by a multiple of 4. If, for instance, an investor had it in mind last year that he or she was going to start a business of sales of oranges, and he or she has saved amount of 500 naira, that by this year is going to venture into the business. But right now, he will realize that the amount to save, 500 naira, can only get him a quantity of that commodity last year. That is to say, the price of commodities has increased by a multiple of 4. So in a nutshell, the investor would have been discouraged into venturing into this business. It would have discouraged his plan for starting this business. It will also have reduced, to also have discouraged this intention of starting the business, because the price of the commodity has increased by a multiple of 4. Now, according to the Keynesian theory of inflation, the Keynesian theory of inflation grouped the causes of inflation into 3 main causes. 1, as a factor of demand. When the increase in price of goods and services is inversely proportional to the demand of a commodity, then we call it a demand pull inflation. That is to say, as demand increases, the price of that commodity increases. 2, cost push inflation. This happens most of the time when there is increase in price of commodity as a result of decrease in supply of that commodity. This is more pronounced in our oil and gas sector when there is a dip in supply of either the crude or the gas or petroleum, we realize that the price of the commodity will invariably increase. The third cause of inflation is grouped into built-in inflation. This arises most of the time as a result of increase in price will eventually lead to increase in price of all other commodities by creating a self-reinforcing cycle of increments. Effect of inflation. As discussed with the illustration of the oranges, realize that when there is rise in price of goods and services, it will discourage planning and budgeting, because if you had budgeted a certain amount of money to start a business at a time, and realizing in the present situation that the price of that commodity has increased, it will have defeated your planning and budgeting. 2, it leads to decline in economic growth. That is, when there is inflation, there will be decrease in exportation, because inflation would have discouraged production. So there will be a kind of distortion in balance of trade. That is the importation and exportation. 3, it can impose hidden tax. By this we mean the commodity we are buying is taxed in a way that the buyer will not know that it's taxed. That is, there will be increment in the price of that commodities. It can discourage investments and savings. Yes, like the illustration of the oranges, a man who has intended to start a business around with 500 naira this year, discovered that the price of that commodity has increased by 400 naira. So the aim of savings has been discouraged, and the aim of investment too has been discouraged. It can also affect internal trade. When an economy has high or unpredictable inflation, it causes exports to be more expensive. It leads to hoarding of commodities. By this we mean, once a trader realizes that his commodity is being demanded in the economy, he or she may decide to hoard the commodities in order to get more profit at the time when he or she intends to sell these commodities. Now, when inflation gets too high, it can lead to dollarization. By this, an investor will intend to put his money in an asset where he feels that the value of that money will not depreciate, even if it's not going to appreciate. By dollarization, you can buy foreign currency in order to be on the safer side. Nigerian inflation. Around 1970s, Nigeria witnessed high and volatile inflation rates, which was due to growth in money supply as a result of the government spending, increase in wages, and distortion in structure of production, and also currency devaluation. This term is gotten according to the CBN Journal of Applied Statistics, Volume 9, Number 2. 1984, Nigeria experienced an inflation rate of 41.2%, which was due to the devaluation of the naira and expansion in money supply. The control measures used to tackle this high inflation was price control measures. And at the end of tackling the result, the inflation dwindles to about 5.5%. In 1995, Nigeria experienced the highest of its inflation figure, which is 79.9%. And the causes of this are excess money supply, scarce foreign exchange, and shortage in commodity of June 12, 1993 election. The control measures used to tackle this hyperinflation was effective monetary policy, fiscal prudence, and stabilization of exchange rate. And at the end of this, the inflation dwindles from 79.9% to 6.6%. Now, to abridge our focus on the issue of Nigerian inflation, we will look at the inflation from November 2023 to January 2024. The headline inflation in November 2023 was 28.2%, and by December 2023, it was 28.92%, which gave an increment of about 0.72%. And at December 2023 and January 2024, the inflation rate has risen to about 0.92%, giving January inflation to be 29.9%. Why the food inflation grew consistently from 32.84 in November 2023 to 33.93 in December 2023. And at January 2024, the food inflation has increased to 35.41%. The trend in Nigerian inflation in the year 2023. Around January 2023, Nigeria recorded an inflation rate about 21.82, which grew astronomically to about 28.92 at December 2023. This shows about an increment of 7.10 increments. And it is expected that inflation will continue to increase, but moderate itself as we further into the quarters in the year. Now, not to alarm you, a little bit of inflation is okay. Every country experiences inflation rate. Every country fights inflation rate. Nigeria has experienced a single digit of inflation, as well as double digit of inflation. So as explained earlier, among the three causes of inflation, demand, supply, and continuous rise in price of goods and services. Other factors that could lead to inflation: plague, war, natural disaster, and political unrest. When there is war and disaster, there is tendency that the price of goods and services will increase as production will reduce, and political unrest could also cause rise in price of goods and services. At this point, if you look at the statistics from the food inflation around November 2023, we see that the food inflation growth was about 0.72%, which shows that most of the time when there is inflation, there's always an increase in rise of food and commodities. And this is the reason why measures have to be taken in order to curb rise in prices of goods and services. At this point, I would like to give the stage to Mr. Nnamdi as I'm through with my.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. That was very inspiring. I think the floor is open. The main essence of having to go through this is the fact that we need to understand, be it historic, like he has explained to us, and what is happening currently. But most importantly, how does it affect the work we do, our business, and our investments? So at this point, the floor is open for comments, for questions, so that we can fully understand this presentation. So please, let's interact with the presenter. And then let's raise our hand if we have a question or a comment.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Please go ahead, sir.
Well done. This is a good presentation. But my question goes on. Mention the causes of the inflation, demand pool, cost pool, and continuity in rising in price and etc. But concerning the present situation of Nigeria, which one can we tag our situation to personally? Because we are not engaging in war. And can we say it's the political inflation or demand pool inflation, or which one you see affecting Nigeria personally?
Okay, thank you. Now, to answer the question, first, if you look at the cost of inflation, according to the Keynesian theory, the cost push inflation, that is more pronounced in oil and gas sector, which means that when there is rise in price of goods and services, this occurs as a result of decline in the supply of that commodity. If you look at our oil and gas sector, whenever there is shortage of supply of petroleum or the normal cooking gas that we use or kerosene, you see that the price of this commodity goes up. Now, concerning demand pull inflation. Now, if you look at the problem we are facing in the agricultural sector, when the farmers are finding it difficult to go to the farm and make the best use of their farmland. Demand pull inflation would arise as a result of inefficient, there is shortage in supply of goods and services. For instance, if there is shortage in production of yam, the price of the commodities available will increase. We are experiencing that at the moment when prior before now, we buy a bag of rice is sold for about 50,000. Now it is sold about 70-something thousand, if I'm correct. So you can see that the causes of this inflation are interwoven. That is to say, if you want to face or you want to provide a solution to inflation, you have to look at so many factors to achieve a better result. That is what I'm trying. That's the answer to the question asked.
Thank you very much. Please let's interrogate. It doesn't have to be a question. You could have a comment that you want to relate to us. Okay, while the questions are coming, I would like you to project forward. Where do you see us mid-year, end of year in terms of our inflation?
I believe the inflation will ease through the year. Concerning all the efforts of the president is trying to, he has ordered them to release some greens, and by tackling insecurity, I believe farmers will have the courage to go back to farm, really put their effort in production of goods and services. I think by the end of the year, I'm not saying inflation will eventually dwindle to a single-digit figure, but I'm saying that the effect and the causes would have been reduced to a minimum.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the House? Okay, somebody sent me a question directly. Let me try and read it to you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir.
Please, let me open it. It's on the chat.
When you are opening, sir, can I please?
It says, to curb the rising inflation rate, what do you suggest to be short and medium-term solutions notably within 3 to 6 months.
Okay. Okay. I would suggest right now I would suggest, because of increments in price of goods and services, I would suggest that the border should be opened to ease fall in price of goods and some commodities. If you look at the price of cement, for instance, the Boa cement and Dangote cement is on the high. I believe if other commodities is allowed to come into the country, I think there will be price conflict, and they'll eventually have to come to a price where the investors, the consumers will not have more, or will experience less burden in getting these commodities. I think opening the border will be easy, and I also think that commodities should be subsidized, because not only by subsidizing commodities, I mean encouraging the farmers to go back to farm and to be able to produce more of these food commodities for the citizenry. That is my suggestion to the curb of inflation.
Thank you very much. There's also another comment here that says, what are the consequences of inflation on companies operating in Nigeria and also for citizens of Nigeria?
Okay. For the companies and citizens. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. As explained in my illustration of the budget, the basket of oranges. One of the causes of inflation for companies are that the cost of there will be a reduction in cost of production. This will eventually lead to maybe lay out some labor, some workers will have to forfeit their job, because cost of production will increment, and most of the commodities that are materials, I mean raw materials that are used in their production are imported material. And when there is inflation, it is certain that exportation will be at low, while importation will be on the high. And when there is this kind of scenario, it will discourage companies, and most of these companies will have to fold up. And to the citizen, I feel we are all experiencing the rise in price of goods and services. And when there is, as a result of inflation, we are all experiencing the rise in price of these goods that we consume daily. And I think that's one of the effects of inflation, that we have to pay more for goods that we could get for a low price if inflation was truly monitored.
Thank you very much. I have a question here. It's rather long, so let me try and paraphrase it. It says that if you open the borders, like you suggested, to bring in goods, what effect will it have on dollar? Because they will require dollar to go and get those goods.
What effect will it have on dollar?
Yes, basically, if you open the borders, goods can come in, and then, but for those goods to come in, they need to be paid for in dollars.
Okay, sir.
And we don't have dollar.
That's okay, sir. We don't have dollar. It's not that we don't have dollar, it's just that the demand for dollar is on the high, which made the competition between Naira and dollar. And if the border is open, it will further impose more pain on the Naira. So I feel most of the time we complain on subsidy on petroleum, subsidy on electricity. I think the best thing, one of the best, I believe in all other countries too, the price of foodstuff are subsidized. I think we need to look into subsidizing the price of our foodstuff. So if we open the border and as a result of less dollar, I think yes, if we open the dollar as a result of less dollar, I think that we can work in a way that the goods will be allowed to come into the country, And the payment of dollar, we could make an arrangement in terms of, okay, these goods and services could pay in naira instead of dollarization. Instead of paying in dollar, we can an agreement can be made that will pay in naira since we have more of naira than less dollar. I think that's the best solution to it. We pay in naira instead of paying in dollar.
Okay, there's a follow-up question to that. It says, do you think opening of our borders will be the long-term solution?
No, the border is just going to government for a period of time where government could really contain the effect of insecurity that is affecting the farmers from going to their farmland. I think it's just for a period of time when the president will be able, or the president will be able to contain that effect of not being able to go to the insecurity problem. The time when there is large production of these goods and services, and most government could subsidize, could motivate farmers so that it encourage them, so that more goods and they look into storage, they look into processing, so that all these commodities can be readily available. And when these commodities are readily available, another tree can be made on shorting the border for some time.
Thank you for that response. The floor is still open. If you disagree, you can also say it. We're here to learn.
Hello, sir.
Mr. Adebayo, you have the platform. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Another control measure, I think, of if there's a price control on everything, I think it would be a great relief. Not that Mr. A is selling saying 10,000, another person is saying 20,000. At least if there's a uniformity in the price of every product, it would be a great relief for the inflation, the solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I would like to say something concerning the price control measures. As the example I gave concerning the rise in price of cement, the BUA cement and Dangote cement. I think when they had the resolution that they have to reduce their price, or they will allow competition into the market. By allowing competition, they are going to open the borders and allow inflow of other type of foreign type of cement. And this will eventually crash the price of Dangote and BUA cement. More so, it will also lead to labors and loss of job from at their own hand. I think that's one of the things I said concerning price control measures.
Okay. The floor is open, please. Let's continue the conversation. It's getting very interesting. You can put your questions on the chat box. You can send it to me directly, but we'd also like to hear your voice. So please indicate so that we can give you access. Okay, I have a direct question sent to me. I hope you can hear me very well.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How does inflation affect investments in Nigeria, knowing that the rates we are getting is far below what the inflation rates are doing?
Considering the illustration I use in explaining inflation, the way inflation will affect investment is the way you have the commodities that is sold for 100 naira, say last year, February, and the commodity is sold by 500 naira this year, February. You see that if you had the intention of venturing into that commodity, that market, that business, you see that the price of the commodity has increased by a multiple of 4, about 400% increment. So if you have the plan of going to this business or starting this business, first, inflation, the rate of inflation would have discouraged you into venturing into this into this business because you have had the plan of starting the business in this year because you have saved up to 500 times 5 of the startup capital. And when you are trying to venture into when you are trying to venture into the business and you see that the capital you have, which if you had started the business a year before, you would have been able to purchase 5 times the commodities you are going to purchase this year, which means that with that, it would have discouraged you from venturing into that business. I think that's the best solution, the best answer to that question.
Okay, playing the devil's advocate here. So are you saying we should just close shop and go home?
No, sir. No, I'm not saying we should just close the shop and go. I'm just saying that since it's a general problem, it's a general problem that there's rise in price of goods and services. I'm saying that it's now called for our government to put in place what will make the living of the citizenry to be at ease.
Thank you very much. We'll take 1 or 2 more questions before we continue. We'd like to also recognize the fact that we have some guests in the meeting. We have the Group Finance Director of Guinea Insurance PLC, Dr. Odebo, with us. Please, thank you for joining the session. Okay, we have one more question for you. It says, how can we deepen this economy of ours?
I didn't get the question.
How can we deepen this economy of ours?
By deepen, I don't understand what you meant by deepen.
How can we make it stronger? How can we make it more resilient to be able to accept and take care of all these shocks that we are getting?
I think one of the solution I could prefer to making the economy stronger than it is now is that there are so many sectors in the economy that we need to look into. I think we should look at the one that we can easily achieve in the short term. Our short-term goals should be achieved, and I think one of the short-term goals should be encouraging and putting incentives in promoting agriculture. I think if Nigerians can eat and feed, I think we don't complain too much. Then I think we should look at we should look at the other factor that ends, or the other sectors that ends us as a country foreign currency. I mean the petroleum sector. I think we should look into the fact of trying to reduce and monitor vandalization. And our refinery should be put in place at optimal functionality to encourage, because most of these commodities are consumed by Nigerians. I believe if we can have all these things, the short-term goals, if we can achieve our short-term goals, I think the long-term goals can also be achieved in a time.
Thank you very much. I want to also recognize that we have in the house the head of marketing GTI, Ms. Agnes, because why I'm recognizing you is that I have a question here that I would like you to answer for us. Are you with me, madam?
I'm with you.
All
Morning.
Right. Good morning. The question says, let's say I'm trying to pitch investment to a potential client and he complains about inflation. What should be my rebuttal in a way to convince him to invest?
Okay. Good morning. So I'm a bit under the weather. Pardon my voice. Please let me know if I'm audible enough. I feel every investor, we're all investors, currently keep looking at the returns on their investments. And that is the key factor, when you're discussing investment with every investor, every potential investor. Basically, I would say it's better for you, to get your funds to work for you than just keeping them. Some people feel, oh, the returns I'll get on my investment does not even, match with the current inflation, rates, which is ongoing, and it looks like it's rising, by the day. But at the end of the day, it's better than just leaving your funds there, because as you're leaving it, it's not yielding any returns, it's not yielding any profits, and you're losing. So I would advise every potential investor, every potential client, every Nigerian particularly, to always save something away, invest something, and make sure you're getting returns. You're getting returns on your monies, on your funds, and don't just leave them, just sitting around and saying, oh, I'm not getting 50%, I'm not getting 60% above the current inflation rates. But as long as you're getting returns on it and your funds are secured, which is most important, security of funds, I believe it is a much better option than just leaving your funds and saying you're not getting, returns that is matching the current inflation rate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's I'm convinced. I have hello.
Hello.
I have sorry, one at a time, please. One at a time,
Okay.
please. I have Mr. Andrew. Please go ahead.
Good morning, all. It's a pleasure joining you guys up, and I just have a very simple question, because actually the situation of the economy is something that should worry everybody, should bother everybody. A few days back, I bought a bag of cement, 6,500. 2 days after, I bought it 7,500. After 4 days, the cost of the cement jacked up to 11,000. And as I'm speaking this morning, it's 11,500. So we are talking about how do we get around all these economic problems. I just have one solution. Like the last speaker that spoke before Agnes, he talked about food, which is the cheapest thing on earth. If you go to Europe, go to America, food is the cheapest thing. But here in Nigeria, food is a very big problem. Why is it so? Insecurity. I think we'll be doing ourselves great, what do I call it now? This service, when we fail to look at the issue of insecurity. If farmers do not go to farm, how will you get the food to feed the country? It's a very pertinent question. I know the amount of money federal government is voting into insecurity, trying to checkmate the excesses of these terrorists, these bandits who are stopping farmers from getting to their farms. Yet, the issue keeps, reoccurring. So I'm thinking we can give the best economic solution to the problem of this country. But if you overlook insecurity, we've not started. Thank you. It's just my own candid opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrew. I think we just take the last one. Tom, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, my contribution is towards first, good morning, everyone in the room. The question around inflation, how do you beat the inflation with investment? And I think it is very good that we make that assertion now. I think currently the inflation in Nigeria is about 29, almost knocking the off 80%, and as they say in elementary corporate finance, the higher the return, the higher the risk. And it is very clear that we have to also be very careful, because if you are saying the investment you want to Nigeria today is to get 30%, or if you don't get 35%, you won't invest. You may end up not investing at all. And so, summarizing or my take from what Madam has also suggested, it is instead of not investing at all, it is better we look at the best way to reduce the effect of the inflation on our cash position. And so I believe GTI as a group, not just the security arm, GTI as a group has a basket of portfolio managers that can take care of individuals, corporates, institutional investors who are looking forward to, at best, let us reduce the effect of inflation instead of just remaining at zero, instead of allowing 30% reduction to eat the value of our value. Let us try as much as possible to reduce it, and we have more than what it takes to reduce it to the optimum, as it were. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very well said. I think I have just one more comment here. It says the first thing first, let the government solve the security issue to the barest minimum. Secondly, let us shift the agriculture attention from the federal government to the state. Governments, make the state government invest in agriculture by the creation of farm settlements in each local government and encouraging farmers to go back to the farm. I think at this point, we want to say thank you to everyone. It's been a very robust discussion. We appreciate our guests who joined us on this webinar, but we've run out of time. A very big thank you to our presenter, the head of research at GTI. Thank you for your presentation. And for the rest of us, please let's have a wonderful day. Good morning.
Okay, sir.